Okay, Duke, it's time for some education. I'm going to tell you something you don't know. Because Duke here, who is an independent, says Joe Biden sold off half of our strategic oil reserves. What if I told you that Congress approved the sale of all of that oil? What if I told you that people like Donald Trump, Ted Cruz, Lindsey Graham voted for and signed legislation to sell all that oil you're talking about under the Biden administration? What if I told you that Donald Trump actually proposed selling even more oil than Joe Biden did? Yeah, let me show you. So this is the Bipartisan Budget Act of 2015, widely supported by both sides, signed by President Obama. This called for the sale of about 100 million barrels of oil out of the SPR. That was made law. That oil had to be sold. Then you had the FAST Act, which actually brought to Congress by Republicans. This is something Republicans wanted, and they got it. This called for the sale of like 30 million barrels of oil out of the SPR. All voted on by people like Lindsey Graham. All the Republicans supported this, signed by Barack Obama. The Tax Cuts and Jobs Act, or the Trump tax cuts. Yeah, this called for the sale of oil out of the SPR. But do you know what the Trump administration proposed when they proposed this legislation? They proposed to sell 344 million barrels out of the SPR to pay for the tax cuts. It would have been the largest non-emergency sale in U.S. history. This is what Donald Trump proposed. In budget documents, the White House said it would sell off half of the strategic petroleum reserves, which at that time would have been 344 million barrels. And oil was like $50 a barrel. And then you had the Bipartisan Budget Act of 2018. This called for the sale of over 100 million barrels of oil out of the SPR, and it was made law. The budget deal that the U.S. Congress passed and Donald Trump signed into law last Friday calls for selling 100 million barrels of oil out of the Strategic Petroleum Reserve. Stop believing these politicians. They're completely full of shit. Donald Trump literally tried to sell half the Strategic Reserve. All of these Republicans in the Senate and the House that are screaming that Joe Biden is destroying this country for selling oil out of the reserve made it law that he must do so. They literally passed the laws, and Obama and Trump signed the legislation, and you're believing their bullshit. If Joe Biden had not sold oil out of the Strategic Petroleum Reserve, he would have been breaking the law that Republicans and Democrats both passed, including Donald Trump, including Ted Cruz, including Lindsey Graham, including all of the people that are the most outraged that Joe Biden followed the law. There's your education. Have a good weekend.